Welcome to In the Gutter, a podcast that is all comics, all bangers, all the time, with story expert Lonnie Diane Rich and superhero scholar Joshua Unruh. One of the hosts has read almost no superhero comics, and the other has read almost all of them. We'll let you sort out which is which. And now, In the Gutter.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier to you that you might be entertained by my wardrobe choice today. Now, I need to preface this with something that you know, but the listeners don't, and I can remind you, is that a lot of the people I work with, the majority of the people I work with, are in their early to mid-20s. Okay? Early to mid-20s. We have a few folks that are in the upper 20s, lower 30s, but like I got hired there and like, boop, fucked up the mean average age a solid decade. It is also important for me to point out that I have worn the stuff I wore today to work before, and I have received compliments. Like, I want this to, like, because when I'm going to say what it was, everybody's going to get a picture in their head, and it's going to be a bad picture, but it's not. It's a good picture. I have received compliments. Okay. So today I wore to work a pair of boots and a sweater that I have owned since college. All of you have some like horrible fashion nightmare in your mind right now, but no, it's nice. It's a little Abercrombie and Fitch sweater and these Doc Marten boots that I've had that long. Okay.
Wow.
Now, there's no, like the heel used to be like whatever Doc Marten heel height, like 3 inches, and now it's like half an inch, and there's no inside in the thing, but they still look great. Yeah. And the sweater looks great is the thing. Okay. Now, so remember, these coworkers have complimented this outfit by saying to me, this is not the giant burn, by the way. The burn is coming. But they complimented this by saying that they were like, oh yeah, 90s nostalgia. And I was like, you have no fucking idea, children. Okay. But I do this and it's fine. And, you know, I look good. No, it's compliments. It's fine. But I mentioned this to my friend Jeff. Jeff is probably not listening, but just in case, hi, Jeff. Jeff, I met in college. He has been my friend as long as I've known my sweater and my boots. So, and Jeff is almost precisely my same age. Like our birthdays are like 9 days apart. Yeah. Almost exactly the same age. And I tell him this. I'm like, I'm wearing the sweater and boots that I've had since college. And this motherfucker points out to me that means my boots and sweater are older than the majority of my coworkers.
Oh, Jeff, that's cold, man.
Now, the thing is, notice, this is a man I've known since college. He is almost precisely my same age. He wanted to burn me so bad that he was willing to take all that splash damage right back on himself. Man, A+ fucking commitment.
Yeah.
Right there.
No, I mean, definitely you got to respect that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now
age
this
sucks.
is.
I'm at that point where every time I watch anything, I've got IMDb open on my phone being like, how old is that person? How old was that person when this was? Were they older than me?
No,
or are they younger
I don't
want
to know.
No, it's not good.
I don't want to know.
It's not good.
I don't want to know. It's not good. And but again, I don't dislike my age. We were talking earlier and I was like, if I'm breathing, I'm winning. Right. So it's like every year above snakes is a A+ year. We're down. But every now and then, like, I'll make a reference that is, you know, just right in the sweet spot of my experience. And it's just blinking. And I'm like, oh, that whatever thing I just said went off the air before you were born. Cool story, you know. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, our references age with us and become increasingly inaccessible because people who are older than us, our age or older, are rapidly a dwindling population.
Yeah.
So, you know, but yeah, you know, if you're still alive, that's really, are you alive or are you not? And if you're alive, then it's all good.
That's it. And now, all right, unexpected Patreon exclusive.
Yes.
It's not going to be as exciting as it sounds. But if, I don't know, let's say 10, if 10 people come and annoy me on the Discord, I will take a picture of myself in my 25 plus year olds.
I love it. I love it.
Abercrombie
Do
and
I
Fetch
count
Twitter,
as one of those people? If I bug you on the Discord, am I one of that number?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll
thank you.
allow it. I'll allow it. Because what you're going to do is like, shit, I own both of those things. Like, you're going to be like, oh, fuck. That's like literally not even like a sweater like that. I had that sweater. That's what's going to happen.
It's entirely possible. All right. So here we are today with JLA number 6. Last week we had Woman of Tomorrow, which rocked. It was awesome. And here we are moving into a different kind of thing going on with the JLA. We've got this 2-parter with angels and all sorts of shenanigans that I don't even
It's just
really
an
know.
invasion from heaven.
It's
just an invasion from heaven. I don't know why you're
why I'm making
getting
such
all
a big
crazy
deal
about
out of it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe you
it's
should
just
go
an
ahead and
invasion
just
from
give
heaven.
us the summary and get us started.
In JLA number 6, Fire in the Sky, we open with a comatose patient and the horrifying realization that the devil is, in fact, in the details. Neron, the Lord of Hell who really likes bargains and contracts, is on the move for some souls and gets the help of 2 primordial demons by letting them drag the moon out of the sky and smashing it to Earth. Again, I don't know what you're so concerned about. Meanwhile, an angel falls from the sky and lands in San Francisco Bay. The JLA moves to investigate, but Flash is trapped in the transporter and Superman is stuck on the moon. The rest of the squad meets Zariel, a guardian angel late of the Eagle host who requested and was granted mortality for an as-yet undisclosed reason. But Zariel has a secret, and it's a big enough one that Asmodel, chief harrier of the bull host of angels, is prepared to bring the full military might of heaven against Earth, if it means silencing Zariel. Luckily for Earth, the JLA is ready to go knock knock knocking on heaven's door.
There was a time in Listen Up A-Holes when we were talking about how wild everything was in the Marvel Universe and how, incredibly expansive it was. And you were like, hold on, hold my beer. One of these days we're going to talk about JLA and the heaven and hell wars and angels and demons and whatnot. And I was like, all right. And that day appears to be here.
Yeah, look, that's not shade on the Marvel Universe, either comic or cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
It is broad and expansive and weird shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
But there is just a scale.
Yes.
That is with DC. DC has its own, it's just a little order of magnitude bigger and weirder and more nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
And then Grant Morrison is a force multiplier on that every single time. Because when Grant writes for Marvel, it gets bigger and weirder and more expansive too. But it's still just like, whoa, that's a 10-gallon bucket there, buddy.
Well, I think it's kind of neat because, I do another DC property. I do Sandman and the Endless podcast with Elisa Whitney. And so one of the things, and I did kind of notice it here, they were talking about the rhyming demons in this. And I'm like, we've got rhyming demons. There are angels. There are, demons. There's all of that kind of stuff in Sandman. But it feels consistent within the Sandman universe. And something about this, it actually it's okay. It works. This doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered the way that I was with Patsy. I'm not I hate all. I am, it's a lot. When I've talked about the efficiency of storytelling in comics and how you can fit so much information on a page, this is at a scale that I can't even keep up. I am, and this is a very old reference, speaking of old references, but in the I Love Lucy show, the GIF is everywhere, so at least people have seen that. The chocolates that just keep on coming and she can't wrap them fast enough, so they're flying all over the floor and she's stuffing them down her shirt. I am stuffing angels down my shirt in this. There's so much shit going on, and I cannot keep up.
Okay, now, this is going to blow your mind, but for real, I have the exact same feeling when I am reading Grant Morrison DC comics.
So it's
I'm
not just
kidding.
me. Okay.
No.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I sometimes am like, is that a guy? Do I just not know that guy? Because I know almost every guy. Should I know this person?
Right.
Who is that guy?
Yeah.
even I'm doing that, right? And the thing is, you're in good hands, right? Like if you don't know from the page, you don't need to know. It's just like sort of added layers. But like that, everything louder than everything else, you know, it's like the wall of sound of storytelling. I'm just the Memorex guy, you know. Old references.
Old
hey,
reference.
This might be a drinking game. We're not going to do it on purpose, but every time Lonnie and I make an outdated reference during this episode, if you are a drinking person, have a shot. Let's see how we're doing at the end.
Absolutely. We'll see how we're doing.
Yeah. Like, so yeah, you're not alone. Like that's me. I've read this book. Like I'm not, if I said 1,000 times, I might honestly not be lying to you. And I'm still just like, boy, a lot of shit is happening right now.
What is happening? All right. So your overall response then to this particular issue, how are you feeling about this issue of JLA?
Okay. I really like that you mentioned that we're coming out of Tomorrow Woman.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, after a brief moment of asking big questions about souls and nature of humanity and the power of choice, and it's like, next issue, big fuck off fight. Except, if you can believe it, it's still about souls, the nature of humanity, and the power of choice. It's still literally about, well, these two issues.
Yeah.
Right? We don't get a lot of the power of choice, but in like Zariel is really like kind of a poster child for that,
about
right?
that,
like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, the themes are the same. No shit.
It's coming
the
at
experience is so different.
It's coming at it from a different kind of place, and there is a sort of frenetic feel to it that at a point it feels like, you know, you're hanging on to the edge of a jet ski and just bouncing over the waves as they're coming at you. And Grant Morrison is driving and they're just looking back at you being like, hey, hang on if you can. You know, I can't really do anything for you. We're just moving. And I'm like, okay. So
you have no idea how much I wish I could say what you just said in a Glaswegian accent, because that would be Grant Morrison telling it to you.
That's just how we're going. I mean, and again, like, we're going to go through this. I'm going to go through bit by bit everything that I saw in this comic in detail. And it's going to be the same thing that we do every time, where I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. And then I tell you everything. And then you say, yep, that's it. But I have to say, like, even with that feeling, like, I don't hate it. It's just so much stuff. And I have no idea what the hell is going on with any of it. At least I don't think I do. We'll go through that and I'll get a sense of what I picked up on and what I missed. I have to say, the art is the one thing that, like, no matter what is going on in the story. And I love Grant Morrison. Like, as I said last week, I am Grant Morrison's bitch. I think there's some really great work going on here. But I have to hand it to Howard Porter. This art is phenomenal. And it's not just like any one page or any one thing. It's the whole accumulation of it. Like, it is all of it so incredibly good. And I find myself, especially at times where I'm not understanding what's going on, I will just stare at the page and not understand the story bits and just be like, those visuals are fucking on point, you know? So, which is funny because I'm not a visuals person. I'm a story person.
I'm at the point where my commentary is like, with a name like Porter, it got to be good. Like, that's all I got. It's just Smucker's jam all over this. You know?
Okay, well, so we've got this cover, right? Where we have the demon, who we will come to know as Neron, right? Who is drinking from a glass that has this like blood red liquid in it. But I'm sure it's, you know, you think it's got a wine association, but, you know, like the fact that it is blood red wine is not lost on everything that that he's doing. And he is drinking, like, in the wine in his glass are the members of the JLA, all of them struggling to get away from falling down his demonic gullet, right?
Yeah.
The thing that I love about this art, first of all, I love that when I looked at it, I was like, before having read anything, I was like, that is really interesting. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know what this dude is, but this is going to be interesting to see that. Also, that it is not a literal representation of anything that like actually happens in the story.
yeah.
It is this metaphorical, consuming of souls. Right? That's,
like
that's
it's the
kind of what I
vibe.
pull
Yeah.
out of it. Yeah, that we're getting that. So it's really fun to see something that is a metaphorical illustration of what this feels like. It brings me back, not in style, but in that kind of sense to the Dave McKean covers for the Sandman series. That Dave McKean's covers are almost always a metaphorical kind of this is what it feels like, not what it actually literally is, kind of thing. So I really enjoyed that about the cover, and I thought the cover was just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue. It's really great. I think that my favorite thing about it is that the stakes look really big on the cover.
Yeah.
But as you read the story, the JLA, this is a little bit of a spoiler for the next issue. Mm-hmm. The JLA have no idea Neron's involved. They never have a fucking clue. So like as big as those stakes are, like on the cover, the actual stakes of the story literally global in scale, and it's just, makes the cover look positively parochial.
Seriously. Yes. Everything. And it is so much. And like I said, I've read each of these issues because this is the one time where I've spoiled myself, and I had to because I couldn't leave it at the end of this issue. I was like, I need to understand what's going on here. But I've read these issues and I have some understanding of what's going on in here, but the cover and the relationship of that to what this feels like as opposed to what it is, the fact that Neron never actually makes contact, he's just kind of like this background antagonist, which is fine. Your protagonist does not need to know who's, causing some shit. Also is causing some shit simultaneously with other people causing some shit. So all of this stuff is going on together. But I find it interesting that Neron, which seems to be kind of a more minor part of the story, has that the sense of the metaphor of what's going on with the coming after people's souls is still kind of front and center to not what it is, but what it means.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. You're on it. And it's, we're now doing allegorical metaphors on the cover of our allegorical metaphors.
Right. It's turtles all the way down, man. So in the interior art, like again, I think it's absolutely fantastic. There are so many things. When we get to the end where I had to choose my favorite art, that was a bit of a struggle for me because, man, there are a lot of things that are just excellent in this. But I have to say, like, every time we talk about Howard Porter, it's going to be a lot of the same thing. It's going to be that using every part of the pig. It's going to be the way that he uses gutters and imagery and movement and kineticism and specificity. Like there's so much going on in this art that like, even, for people who don't like comics, I would say you have to like, I would put this art on my freaking walls. Like any one of these pages, absolutely. I would put on my walls. I just think it's incredible. So it is very fun to kind of, see art that is doing so many interesting things in such a small space. But okay, so now before we go too deep into what does it mean as opposed to what is it, right? I just want to go through the check my math portion of today's program because no one is taking the time to explain anything. And I spend a lot of my time in these comics being like, what is going on? Who is that? Wait, what is that? And flipping back and forth until I'm able to weave something together. And the thing is, anybody who has listened to any of the things that Josh and I've done together, this is a familiar thing. I am certain I have no idea what's going on. And apparently I did somehow manage to get it all. So what I have is this. We open with some bored nurses and a guy in a coma, and in the flowers by his bed, there are demons. And then we have some narration. Hell like heaven is right here, which I really, really liked. So we've got Lord Neron, Wrath, and Ag Nagazar, who I'm assuming are demons, and I'm absolutely certain I pronounced that poorly. All talking about our trade is in souls. And then we go into a being that is diving down from the moon and landing into the water. That's all right?
I think
Is that a
that
being?
the
It's
moon,
a feather.
Yeah. That was Zariel, right?
So that's Zariel. That's the angel feather.
Yes. And did not fall from the moon. I think
Just
the moon
from
is
the
just
sky.
dramatically in the background.
Okay.
He just blipped into existence from heaven at,
Sure.
1,000 miles up or whatever the hell.
Awesome. We've got
Yeah.
so much stuff that's associated with the moon that when I see it in the shot with the moon, then I'm thinking that it's the moon. All right, good. I actually
totally
like it
reasonable.
when you tell me I'm wrong and I've missed something, because I feel very much like I'm wrong. And there is some sense of being validated when you're like, no, that's not right. It's weird.
That's weird, but okay.
Being validated in my sense that I've absolutely no idea what's going on. All right. So then we go to Superman, who is holding up a globe of the Earth in the headquarters on the moon. And I don't know why he's like, it looks like they are redecorating or putting it somewhere, but he's got
They are decorating their trophy room.
They're decorating the trophy room.
If is in the first panel. The supercomputer thing from from the previous issue is in there, and there's like Captain Cold's guns and some other stuff that I know. So they're redecorating the trophy room. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, let me just say I love this beyond the telling of it. Like these couple of pages where we have Flash and Superman decorating.
Ooh, so good.
And you have Superman holding the world like Atlas, with the weight of the world on his shoulders as he says, I don't know how comfortable I am with this myth of me that people actually believe in. And he is struggling with his sense of self. He and Flash are having a conversation about their feelings. And I love when we show men engaging in those kinds of conversations, like where they can actually talk about how they're feeling. It lasts for one page. I get it. We got to move on. But I really did enjoy that. And I enjoy the decorating aspect and all of that kind of stuff. Then we've got Green Lantern.
I want to put a pin right here because I
Yes.
want to point out a couple of things.
Yes.
So we're in the span of that many pages, you have already had not one, but two teases of what's going to happen in the story after this one. So not next issue, but the 2 issues after that.
It is a lot.
Two
It is a
already.
lot.
You're not supposed to know them because they're
Right.
foreshadowing, but you did.
But it's
also,
slid
yes,
in there, yes. Mhm.
I super love anytime. I mentioned to you before that JLA is always these big giant things, and then we get these brief moments. And what's wild to me is one page, you're like, it's only one page, but I'm like, that's 1/22 of this
It's a lot.
crazy
of
thing.
the
So for
time
this
that you
issue,
have.
it's
Yeah.
kind of a lot. Yeah,
spend
it's
a
like a
whole
lot of
page.
space.
To spend a whole page on 2 guys having a conversation about, and then I love this too, that Superman is like, well, how does Batman manage to make his own rules, and all of that, and comparing himself to Batman. And then of course, Flash is by being cold and hard, and you're Superman, you couldn't act like that if you rehearsed. The sense of self, the sense of who you are, the struggling with identity, all of that in one page while we have 2 men decorating. I love it. I love all of that.
There's just a little bit of subtext there too that I would like to tease out. So remember that this Flash is Wally West, the third Flash, second in the line of modern Flashes,
Right.
post-war Flashes. And he is the nephew of the original Flash. And while his uncle was still alive, Wally was his sidekick as Kid Flash. Kid Flash was also a founding member of the Teen Titans. Robin was also a founding member of the Teen Titans, like the first Robin,
Right.
Dick Grayson. They are best friends. Wally and Dick have known each other essentially their entire adult lives, since they were 15 or 16. So when Wally says, because he acts cold and hard to know, He is talking about his best friend's dad.
Well, so he really knows. Like
He really knows.
Yeah.
He really knows. Yeah.
I
It's
love
kind
that.
of it's kind of amazing.
And Superman, who is, kind of like the older, statesman, the elder statesman of all of these,
Yeah.
right? He's been around for a minute, right? And here are these young kids coming in, and he is confiding in them. He is talking about his issues, his sense of self, like all of that. I think is really great,
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Then we
Yeah.
move in, and we've got in one page also like this is the thing,
Yes.
like how quickly all this stuff happens. So we have Green Lantern trying to like come through the transponder. What is it called? Transporter.
Okay, Flash. Flash tried to leave the moon with
Flash
Superman
is
in the
trying to
transporter.
leave,
Yeah.
but isn't that Green Lantern who is saying, "Hey, John had a crisis call from San Francisco."
Yes.
So, and he's also stuck in the transporter. So then Flash is like, "I can get there in 1 minute from the moon to San Francisco." All right, fine.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Green Lantern is not in the transporter, but I think I understand
Wait,
the
isn't he?
confusion.
It
So
says-
when Flash
Yeah.
is in the transporter,
Uh-huh.
he looks like he's kind of covered up in blue light.
Yeah.
And Green Lantern kind of always looks like he's covered up in green light.
Green Lantern's face.
And I think-
Okay, so it's Flash who gets stuck, but Green Lantern is actually like, is he?
He's
doing
already
like
on Earth. He's fine.
He's doing a Zoom call. He's doing a superhero
Yes,
Zoom
that's
call.
exactly.
I get it now. And then
You got
Flash
it.
goes into the transporter, and that's when things go bad. Yeah, a lot of stuff. All right, so then in San Francisco, John finds an angel in the bottom of the
Yes,
sea,
correct.
and in hot pursuit are Asmodee's people, who are also angels. Like, I'm presuming they've got the wings. They all seem like angels, who come after Zariel. And the first thing they say pretty much is, "There is no mercy. There is no pity. We cannot be stopped." Yada, 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 evil monologuing. And I'm like, that's awesome. But also, like, these are angels. Clearly, angels are not the good guys that we had kind of thought that they might be. So all of this action is going on in this space. John is like, okay, here we are. We're speaking telepathically. Feels like home
Yes.
to me. Then the water
Right.
splits. So it's like, Red Sea redux, all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So much going on. Okay, so we've got that. Then now we're in Japan. And
Yes.
and Wonder Woman and Aquaman are battling a robot monster. So it's not like anybody ever
Two robot monsters.
Two robot monsters. It's not like anybody ever has just a day when they're getting coffee. Like, there's always 8 million little crises going on around the world, and everybody's always in
Yeah.
the middle of doing them. So Wonder Woman gets the call. She's in the middle of this. But she's like, all right. Aquaman is like, I'm going to go with you, which she was not expecting. So I'm just like, is there some kind of relationship going on between Aquaman and Wonder Woman? Like, what is that deal?
No.
Okay.
So the thing is, they're both royalty.
Yeah.
And so I think that they get paired up a lot, just kind
Uh-huh.
of in that way.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's not really like a burgeoning relationship. Oh, wait. They might have toyed with that actually in this time.
It
Hey,
just seems-
listeners,
yeah.
there's a couple of you who would know what was
Who
up.
would
Yeah, like I might be misremembering. So maybe there was actually.
It feels like there's
I'm gonna get back to
something.
you.
I'm coming with you. I thought I'd answered the alarm too, and she's like, "What?" So I don't. It just seems. It
The
seems
thing
like a weird
is,
thing. Mhm.
It doesn't happen in this book.
Right.
So I think it. Okay, I'm gonna get back to you.
All right.
Next issue is still this story.
All right.
I am researching this.
We will talk about it then. All right. So anyway, back to the bottom of the sea with Zariel the Angel and Asmodee's people, who are continuing to threaten Zariel. And Zariel tells John to make a run for it. He's just like, "Get the fuck out of here. This is way above your pay grade," right? Then Green Lantern shows up as a fish.
Well, he makes a fish with his ring to be a dick.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So he's just quipping. He's just making
Yeah, he's
a
just
green
being-
fish and just quipping because this is
If you can't fuck with the would-be world beaters, who can you fuck with? Right? Come on.
fair enough. All right. So then he gets zapped back by Asmodee's main dude, who I think we're going to find out that his name is Tromiel. Is that who that is?
Yeah, but don't get married to it. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, it doesn't really matter. All right. So anyway, Aquaman shows up, punches this guy. Guy sends him flying. John gets pissed, and this is actually really, really fun. How many times must we face your kind? Would-be conquerors and master races so full of your own superiority, you will not see reason or hear the voice of sanity. Well, fuck yeah, John. Way to lay it out.
I love it.
Yeah.
I legitimately get chills when I read that speech.
He's
Like,
pissed.
he's mad.
Yeah.
He's legit. He is righteously angry, which is
Righteously
the
angry.
worst possible kind. You are in so much trouble.
I love this. And he goes, but see this, hear this. And then Tromiel is like, we're not going to do anything. And as soon as you hit us, we are going to go to a place where we will vibrationally heal or whatever. And so it doesn't matter what you do. You cannot beat us. Then Wonder Woman lands on Tromiel, knocking him out for a minute. Then Tromiel grabs Aquaman and flies off. And then somebody else.
Angel.
Okay, so it's another one.
Yeah, it was the angel that Aquaman punched.
All right.
First. Because there were two angels.
Right. There were two angels. Tromiel was one of them. Then the other one. Okay. So the other one grabs Aquaman and goes flying off. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that where we are?
Correct.
Okay.
At 100%.
All right. Wonder Woman wants answers from Zariel, who seems really into it. And he's flirting with her. Yes, ma'am. Like, what? I don't know. It's just weird. Anyway.
Got to shoot your shot, man.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later. There's just too much going on for us to actually pause for the Wonder Woman Zariel thing. All right. So Green Lantern flies in and creates a cage for the bad angels. Then they worry about Flash, who has been caught in a transporter beam. Superman reports that the JLA headquarters on the moon is shaking. And then we're back to the demons. And the demons are chatting about how little it takes to throw everything into chaos. One of the demons asks if he'd take the moon. We see him carrying it on his back, not dissimilar to the way that Superman was holding up the weight of the world earlier. And I was like, oh, is that like a reference to that? But clearly,
Lonnie,
this demon doesn't care.
That is a 3-beat. And the third beat is in the next issue.
All right. Well, we'll hold.
And it involves Superman.
We will hold that.
So just remember.
We will hold that for a minute. All right. You know how I love a 3-beat. All right. So anyway, back to our heroes who land on the ground by the Golden Gate to chat, disrupting some dude's smoke break. Like, who is that dude? He's just a guy smoking, and then all of a sudden the JLA lands there. He's sitting in a patch of roses. Who is that dude?
It's just a dude.
It's just a dude. All right.
It's just a guy.
I thought maybe that was somebody like significant or that you would know. So, okay. So this guy is sitting, having a picnic or just having a smoke, just taking a smoke break. It does look like a joint, but I'm not going to say, at this, I don't know. It could just be regular.
None of our business.
None of our business.
Yeah.
So then Wonder Woman and John the Martian Man and the glowing Green Lantern and an angel come flying down into this clearing where this guy is just smoking a doobie, and they just start having this little, conversation about like what the hell is going on and get some explanation about Asmodel and, how bad he is. His blood is the universal solvent and acid 10,000 times purer than any on Earth. I have to say, angels and hyperbole seem to be like right in tune with each other. Like this is all like such big scale.
Well, so I don't think it's technically hyperbole if it's all true.
If it's all true. It feels, it feels super mythic, but of course, we'll see how all of
Heaven,
that
kind of a big deal.
Out. Heaven is kind of a big deal. All right. Also, it's at this point that I noticed that Wonder Woman is our only feminine representation in this whole sausage fest that is just men. And like all white men. I mean, okay, yes, Jean is green, but still, like as far as we're talking about like representation of people who might actually live on Earth, if there is that, it is all white. So that also feels a little bit weird, but you know what? I'm making a note and we're moving on.
That problem will lessen over time, but with characters that stretch all the way back to the 30s, it will not be solved.
Right. There's a lot of work to be done, let's just say, at this
Yes.
point. All right. So Zariel explains everything. He's a former guardian angel of the Eagle host of the Pax Day. He quit. He requested mortality. Green Lantern's like, you're an angel, as if that's weirder than any of the other shit that any of them are, you know. And Zariel warns them about Asmodel, so we get into our hyperbole there. Then we have Green Lantern basically being me. So let me get this straight. You're an angel, and the other guys are trying to kill you are angels. So I felt really seen. Once again, Green Lantern is kind of my guy. You know, he's asking all of the questions.
Character.
Exactly.
Yes.
So Zariel says, like, he knows things, you know, being a little vague. And now that he's mortal, he's vulnerable to the angels coming to, like, kill him. So now this is the point where they all realize that they just left Aquaman with Tramiel's buddy, who is probably going to use his head as a speed bag. Zariel says he'll go and save Aquaman, and then John offers to go with, and Zariel says no. As he leaves, he tells them to clear out before Asmodel arrives, and he flies off. Meanwhile, okay, this is not Tramiel, this is Tramiel's buddy, who is chasing Aquaman through a pool, crashing into a building. And it's only at this point that I realized that angels have two toes. You know, I had a moment where I was like, oh, is there a cloven foot association here? But honestly, I don't have the brain space to even think about anything like that.
You are correct.
Okay.
I'm going to give you props on this one.
Okay.
Because he's a member of the bull host, so it looks like a cloven hoof, like a bull.
Okay.
When you get to see more of Zariel, if you look closely at Zariel, like he's got bird's eyes and he's got, eagle host.
Get it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. So while Tramiel's buddy, who remains unnamed, is threatening Aquaman, Zariel comes in, slaps him back, and Aquaman says Qatar, which I have no idea what that means, but whatever.
I'll tell you in a minute.
Barely holding on to what's going on, and I cannot take one more name. So Zariel turns this angel into ash by messing with angelic vibrations or something like that, saying it could take years for him to reconstitute himself, so we don't have to worry about that dude now. Aquaman says there's something wrong with the tides, which makes sense because a demon is walking around with the moon on his back and pulling on the moon. Then there's this glowing pyramid in the sky, and Zariel says that heaven is way too much for Earth to handle. Asmodel's chariot breaks through the sky. Zariel's freaking the fuck out. All matter is going to be destroyed, blah, blah, blah. And Green Lantern says they should call Superman. And Superman is all like, yeah, we're fucked up here. I'll do what I can, but the moon seems to have fallen to fucking Earth. Then Green Lantern says he has to go because DoorDash just delivered the apocalypse, and that's it. And that's... So that I got, so am I reading that
Nailed
right?
It. Nailed it. I had a couple of little bits and bobs that we had to adjust, but overall, nailed it. 98% there, man.
I cannot believe that I read that right. But yeah. It's a lot. But let's go back to the thing that I find really interesting is we open up with these nurses, you know, kind of sitting by the bedside of a patient that's in a coma. We go inside the flowers that are at the patient's bedside, and within those flowers are the demons. And so we kind of have this like zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Hell is right here, and all of that is great. But the coma patient seems to me to be clearly significant in some way, although I, of course, have no understanding of any of that.
We will not be discussing him until
Yeah.
very briefly next episode,
Okay.
and then in great depth the next time we return to JLA.
Okay.
So I will say to you, yes, he is somebody, and it's going to be a big problem for the JLA.
Mm-hmm.
And he is one of the two teases that I mentioned. The other one is the trophy room.
Ooh, interesting.
So this character and the trophy room are teases for the next problem.
Right. And this is the thing. When we're talking about story efficiency, right? One of the things, the more efficient you want to make your stories, the more like tightly packed you want to make them, is that you never have anything that is only doing one job, right? So here we are at that point, you know, we're looking in at the demons. We're seeing this like kind of mundane, very human experience of somebody in a hospital. And then we zoom in and it's demons and yada, yada, yada. In a less skilled writer, that, page with the guy could have just been a random moment of mundanity, but with Grant Morrison, who is really taking every part of the pig to, an extreme as well. I really, I like knowing that, even though I don't know what those jobs are that these things are doing now, like the trophy room is neat, and they're doing all of this stuff. And that in itself, I was like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. Knowing that the trophy room is also going to be significant a little bit later means that we're planting these seeds, like you're constantly planting these seeds. And as writers, for the writers who are out there, there's definitely a lesson, I think, to be learned in that if you're doing something for one purpose, see if you can make it fulfill two purposes or three.
Yes.
Because the thing is that when you make it fill one purpose, your reader is going to notice that and be like, oh, when it fills two purposes, your reader's going to be like, oh, okay, now that's why that was there. Oh, I get it. When it fulfills three is where you can get that twist in and where you can surprise people and shock them, because the people who are savvy think you've already given them the second purpose, so it can be a really fun way to kind of like get things in, get surprises into your story. But it's fun. I'm really glad that they did that in this story.
It's really impressive. I mean, it just really is. And to me specifically, in a way, because a lot of serialized superhero comics today do not serialize themselves very well. Right. Or they treat it like each issue is a chapter in a larger story instead of like kind of the like we're always just going. The constant churn of we just happen to be looking in on these people's lives today, and this is the batshit stuff that happened. So just basically props for treating serialized fiction like it's serialized. A+.
Right.
And the thing I really appreciate, you don't know who this person is. I didn't know who this person was the first time I read this.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to get a fucking hint for 44 pages. Across, at my experience, 2 months.
Yeah, right.
8 weeks, 44 pages. That's when it's going to pay off. Damn.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about bringing angels and demons into this JLA universe and how all of that kind of works.
I mean, okay, what are your questions? When you say how does it work, I'm like, I
believe my question
do not know where to
is
start.
like angels.
Okay,
because here's the thing: like when you have particular kinds of universes that come together. Like if you're doing a sci-fi story and you've also got kind of like a fantasy universe, sometimes if it's not done skillfully, those things can kind of scrape against each other a little bit in tone and scope and world building and all that kind of stuff. So here we have, I think, the superheroes. I mean, Superman is from space. Like a lot of John is from space. So there's a lot of a sense of like a sci-fi feel to a lot of the stuff that's going on in your superhero comics in general, right? So now here we have these mythological figures. And I kind of had that struggle a bit with in the Marvel universe when we've got, Iron Man and Captain America and all this stuff and Thor. Like, and then Thor, God of fucking thunder, shows up. And I'm like, how am I supposed to deal with a god in this world space? And so here we have like angels and demons and heaven and hell. Like, how does this fit into the space for you? Or is the DC universe so incredibly expansive, there is absolutely nothing that it can't find a place for?
Oh, that's superhero comics right there, actually. But also I want to point out that we have had a divine presence all throughout JLA up till this point in Wonder Woman, who is empowered by Greek gods.
Right.
So we've had the fantasy aspect sort of in there. Yeah. Now, a thing that I really appreciate about superhero comics is that they are sort of the perfect genre mashup. I don't know why. I really don't know. The only thing I can figure is that there were just so many influences getting thrown at them at the beginning. So like you've got Superman coming in, obviously a science fiction story. And like 2 minutes later, you've got Batman, which is just mysteries. Like it's just a mystery story You know, not very long after that, you get your Wonder Woman, and now we have this big fantasy and mythology aspect. And that's like boom, boom, boom. Those are your first three. And as soon as you decide that they have to be able to hang out, you just, all right, I guess it all fits.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it all works, you know. I do think that like heaven and hell is really interesting because, I mean, you all have been talking about a lot of heaven and hell off and on Endless.
Yes.
Because heaven and hell are like factions.
That's a big
that
part
have to be balanced and dealt with. It's like a Cold War.
Right.
And it's still big because it's happening in these like massive extraplanar spaces, but it's also because those are just really different stories. It's almost like the boardroom of hell. You know, like it's important because it's hell, but it's boardroom, you know, whereas this is like cackling demon lords talking about buying and selling cells or souls and smashing the moon into the, so even here, the scale is like, it kind of depends on what the story is like. But I mean, you have mythology, you've got science fiction, you've got, I should say mythologies, because I mean, it's just whatever it is, you just put some superhero paint on it, and then they can hang out with all the rest of them, you know. So yeah, I mean, and this has kind of been from jump, really, because one of the original members of the Justice Society is the Spectre, and he turns out to be the angelic wrath of God. That's no big deal. Just what's up. So yeah.
I don't know. It's we do have Zariel a couple of times saying God, right? In the way that we would say it.
Yes.
Like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, except he doesn't say that. He says, oh, God, you know? And I'm like, okay, so is God an actual figure in all of this? And like, what is that about? And how does that work? Where angels who are supposedly here to be like good, I mean, they're not great, you know, like they're
okay. I want to take a step back from that.
Yeah.
Angels, not good. Like in the ways that we would conceive them. And I mean, even in sort of original text, like even if you refer to like the New Testament or the Tanakh, like every time an angel shows up, they are not cute, fat babies because every time they show up, it's one of two things. They are basically humanoid, but everybody's immediate response is to fall face first on the floor. Like the first thing an angel has to say every time they show up is, don't be afraid. Every time. Every time. This is almost without fail. The first thing they have to say. And the other option is that they are not humanoid at all, and they're big fucking concentric rings of eyeballs and wings spinning around each other in the sky. Like, so angels like are when it says heavenly host is not like a big group. It's an army.
Oh my God.
Angels are warriors. Angels are fighters. Like that's the thing. No cute fat babies. None. So, you know, now ostensibly, they're like in service of the Almighty, who's good. So they're doing good things. But I mean,
good, yes.
I guess this would be another place for us to point out the difference between good and nice.
Yeah.
Angels, typically pretty good. Nice? Fuck no.
Well, see here though, they don't seem very nice. They're not good. They're just coming and fucking shit up, and they do not care. They don't care about the life that is lost. They don't care about
Asmodel, right? Yeah.
Right.
So this is, I think we'll just do a little bit.
Right.
This is a minor spoiler, but we're going to go ahead and do it because we want to talk about the fact that Asmodel is also atypical, you know, from angels. Because the secret that Zariel knows is that Asmodel is planning a rebellion in heaven. Asmodel is convinced that he can succeed where Lucifer failed, right?
Okay.
So, not a good guy, right? Like, is he an angel? Is he a demon? Like, is almost the wrong question, and we can talk more about that in a minute if you want. It's not strictly superhero stuff. It's just, you know, angels and demons. But, like, he's not a good example of his species or race or extraplanar being, whatever you want to say. Asmodel's a bad guy. But it's interesting that because he's in the position that he's in, because he is like the chief harrier of the bull host, which I kind of get is like the general of the best army
Right.
of the best army, right? Like the best platoon of the best army. And if he were doing this because the presence, which is kind of how he refers to God in that space, if he was doing this on behalf of the presence, he's a good guy. But he ain't, so he ain't.
So he ain't. Right, exactly. So it's kind of interesting. Like I'm interested in bringing in angels and demons because whenever anybody brings like religious ideas and icons into their storytelling, it comes into that storytelling kind of charged with whatever that meaning is to the culture in which they're bringing the storytelling. You know, I've talked about that a lot on Still Pretty, which was my Buffy podcast, about how they would use all of this imagery, specifically Catholic imagery, you know, the crucifix and the holy water and the wafers and all of that stuff that is very, you know, Catholic, and that it comes in charged with a power from the meaning, but they kind of strip it from that meaning and use it in a way that is iconic and yet not attached to what the original meaning of any of that is. And I think we're seeing some of that in if you're separating out like the religious aspects of angels and demons that we so associate all of this with, and really are talking about them in terms of the mythology, you know, that they, because the mythological, the source, you know, material, the text that gives us a lot of this stuff, you know, like you said, when do not be afraid, this is, you know, like a big, like they're scary things, you know, and they're not always there to help us. They're there to do whatever they're there to do, you know, but they're incredibly powerful. So I think when you fold that mythology in, but it has that religious context, and depending upon the culture, where your readers are and what it is that they are bringing extra textually to that, I think that there is a lot of complication that happens when you kind of use those religious icons in your storytelling.
You know that I have agreed with you about that on Buffy and Angel in some of my appearances on those shows. Like, I agree with you. I feel like I don't even know if it's that genre, but I will say those shows specifically really lean hard on religious imagery, but don't want you to look too, like, they want to take advantage of the depth, but they don't want you to look at it very deeply.
Right.
What I think about superhero stuff, when mythological or fantastical elements get injected into superheroes, a lot of that, this will shock you, a lot of that nuance kind of gets scraped off, right? Like, this is, on one hand, this is a ridiculous idea, but what would the average Viking think of Marvel's Thor?
Right.
It's not going to bear any real like, are there bits he's going to be like, well, he's got a fucking hammer, but I don't know what these winged helmet. Why is he fucking blonde? I mean, like, there's they're going to kind of get it, but not really get it, you know? And what I think is really fascinating about this is we get a very vaguely Christian idea of heaven here, but like all the nuance is stripped off of it. Like, it just becomes, which maybe that's why a lot of these genre mashups work in superhero comics, because like a lot of the hard edges get sanded down to where they will fit together well enough. And I mean, I kind of love it. Like, I kind of like that Morrison reached into this kind of potentially anathema grab bag, because, you know, introducing, well, let's say there is a huge portion of the Earth's population right now that would not consider this mythology. Right. So it's like a different kind of animal than just picking up Thor or Zeus or whatever. But we do it here and just treat it. I mean, you could imagine 1,000 years in the future, Christianity is gone, and if this was written into the comic book, it would be like the same as us picking up Thor in 1960 whatever.
Exactly.
You know, and I like that. We just dodge a lot of the harder questions because we don't need them to actually answer the harder questions, because this is for fun, not for religion.
Right.
You know.
Exactly. It's kind of cool, and it doesn't not work for me. You know, angels felt like a lot. but at the same time, like all of it is a lot, like at this point,
Yeah.
everything is dialed up to 11. So why not? Yeah, let's just go ahead. It'll be fine. So I find it interesting. I love the demons. I think the demons are a lot of fun, and they do feel like consistent with DC lore of demons and all of that kind of stuff. So I really, really like that. All right. So are we ready to talk about Qatar and who that is and what that's about?
I actually wanted to point out one more little sort of story thing with Heaven and Hell that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Is that I don't think you need to blow Heaven and Hell up big enough to be in a superhero universe, but there's a lot of superhero bombast. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. But how are we introduced to Hell? Hell, like Heaven, is right here.
It's right here. Mm-hmm.
It's at hand.
Yeah.
A certain somebody with some inside information might say that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing. And hell is like right here. And you get this at the same time that there's all this superhero bombast, you get this kind of like, again, small, parochial, approach to, it's just right fucking here. And one of them is big gold pyramid in the sky. And the other one was like hidden in the edges. But I just really appreciated this kind of like low-key vision of hell that, is evocative of, again, like deeper, not deep, because there's a lot going on here, but like things that have a lot of deeper meaning or themes, like the idea of hell. I'm not going to go into deep, but if you're a reader of C.S. Lewis and you haven't read The Great Divorce, that's a lot of folks. Read it. Yep. It's absolutely fucking fascinating. And because of the approach to hell, that it is simultaneously as wide and deep as despair, but it also is like really small and fits between the spaces.
Yeah.
Because evil is small. Evil is banal. Evil has no depth. So is it expansive? Oh yeah, like wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle.
Yeah.
And we get that at the same time that we have angels fucking shit up in San Francisco. So multiple levels.
All right, I love it. Okay, so Qatar, what is that?
Okay.
Aquaman looks at Zoriel and says Qatar, and is like, oh no, I thought you were somebody else. What is that about?
Okay. I'm going to do this one quick because it does not matter, except it entertains me that Morrison was specifically trying to replace a type of character. He was trying to replace a specific character with a type of character. Okay. And the specific character that he was trying to replace was Hawkman.
Okay.
And the reason that he is trying to replace Hawkman is, and this is going to be very difficult to believe as I move from 1999 to the future talking about Hawkman, but at the time, Hawkman was like radioactive, anathema, dead, gone. We will not be looking at or talking about Hawkman again. And the reason for this was way back in the day, in 1940 for the JSA, they introduced Hawkman, and he is essentially an archaeologist who realized he's the reincarnation of a pharaoh, and it was a pharaoh with access to super science, and he did some super science shit, and he goes out and he fights crime as Hawkman. The super science shit he got to do was basically make himself weightless so he could fly like Hawkman. And then he was really good with like ancient weapons because reincarnated. So he would knock you the fuck out with a mace or whatever. Pretty basic as superheroes
go. Right, yes.
Low key, right? Okay. Then Crisis on Infinite Earths happens in 1985, which I've mentioned before is like, they rebooted the universe, right? And the version of Hawkman that they introduced to this new universe is Qatar Hall, H-O-L.
Okay.
Right? Kind of sounds like Carter Hall, Qatar Hall. Sure. And he is an actual Birdman from the planet Thanagar. So they take him out of this kind of mystical fantasy space and move him into a science fiction space. And then a whole bunch of other shit happens in between where people get like nostalgic for the old shit and they try and make Carter Hall reincarnated Prince Khufu and Qatar Hall space cop from Thanagar work together. And it's such a clusterfuck that even DC editorial was like, fucking stop it. You've messed it up. He doesn't fit anywhere anymore. Leave him alone. And there was no Hawkman like to be found at this time. He was off limits. Shortly after this, though, a couple of guys, David Goyer, who has written many screenplays of films that you've seen, and Jeff Johns, who is now in charge of big chunks of DC Comics.
Yes.
They were just writing Justice Society of America at the time, and they wanted to use all the old throwback characters, and they managed to bring Hawkman back and begin this long, slow redemption to where DC editorial didn't have to hold their nose all the time. And the reason that is fucking bonkers, that there was a time when Hawkman was off limits, the reason that's insane is he was in a summer blockbuster last year. Played by fan favorite, Lonnie and Josh favorite, Aldous Hodge.
I love him. Hardison from Leverage. Those of you who may not remember, he's fabulous. Yes.
Got to be Hawkman in the Black Adam movie. Now, I'm a little loath to call Black Adam a blockbuster because it kind of fucking tanked.
Yeah.
And it kind of fucking deserved it. But wait, I mean, I know it's been a long time from there to here, but there was a time when this character, who is now in a fucking tentpole action film of the DC universe, DC editorial was like, you all fucked him up, and that's why we can't have nice things, and nobody gets to have him.
Okay, so my question is, why make that reference now? What is the relationship with Aquaman? The Aquaman would be so like, oh
they
my
were friends.
God. Okay, so they were friends.
Yeah. They were in the JLA together. Like, he knew Kadar.
Okay.
Like he's in the club, and then he's gone because he's dead or whatever the hell they did. It was like shuffle him off to the side and not talk about him. And because Grant is doing this like big guns thing, he wants to nod in the direction of one of the kind of, big guns, like sort of secondary big guns, this character that's been around forever. They want to nod at that, but they're not allowed. So they introduce a different winged superhero in Zariel, and then hangs a lampshade on the fact that they're doing it by having Aquaman do the same thing all of us would do, which was like, oh, fuck, is that Hawkman?
Because so many layers deep. That is such a deep cut. And for them to take the time in a panel to have that reference, considering how fast they're moving with so many different moving parts, that's hilarious.
But it's also kind of a moment of humanity for Aquaman, because he thinks this is his dead friend.
Boyfriend or something. I thought maybe there was like a love story there or something going on, and I was like, "Hey, this is
a bromance.
A bromance,
yeah,
sure,
bromance, yeah." Like sometimes Hawkman and Aquaman would get teamed up, and certain wise asses would refer to that as fish and fowl, but not where they could hear. Not where they could hear.
Sure.
So like they get but I mean, they're friends. Like, they're friends. So there was a moment where Aquaman was like, is my dead friend back? Because did we not just get done saying one issue ago that nobody gives a shit about superhero funerals because the bastards just come back. Right? It's the revolving door.
Yes.
And so he's like, oh, my friend is here. And notice when Zariel's like, what did you call me? His response is, it's just somebody I used to know.
Yeah.
Like, gruff, hard ass Aquaman is not going to have a heart to heart with this rando with wings in the middle of all this other shit.
In the middle of all of this stuff. Yes. No.
So it's like the walls come back up, and it's kind of awesome. Like, it's this moment of vulnerability, and then it's like, the hell you say, We are entering the favorite part of the podcast, where we discuss our favorite parts. We starting with art. I know you had a hard time with this one, Lonnie, but please tell us your favorite piece of art and how you finally decided that it was your favorite piece of art.
What is ironic about that is, as I look at my notes, I'm like, well, I have a favorite, and then I also have a runner-up. Because
I can't pick a favorite, so I'll pick two.
Exactly. So I have to say that, like, I think that my favorite is the page where Zariel falls into the San Francisco Bay, and John is there trying to like comfort him and make him feel better about this situation he's found himself in. I love the panels with they're like a kind of like hand drawn as opposed to like the sharp straight lines that we've had. There's like a green stroke, a very like organic looking green stroke around it. It's just so freaking pretty. Like, I love that page.
Yeah.
I love the way that it looks. But I have to say, I really struggled because my runner-up is the page where the demon is carrying the moon on his back. And he
Mhm.
gets the moon. And so we have kind of like a little bit of overlapping of images on that page. And it's so incredibly beautiful. But in all honesty, like, it's a tight call between those two favorite pages and every other page in the entire thing. It's hard to pick a favorite
Yeah.
page of Porter art. It's all so incredible. What did you come up with?
So I'm a little simpler.
Mhm.
I usually do gravitate with the art to like one,
Yeah.
sort of big moment or
Mhm.
whatever. But there is so much going on in this issue, even for JLA, that like when you were describing the hand-drawn gutters, I was wanting to chime in that
Yeah.
like they're not just hand-drawn, but like it's like the panels are stacked on top of
Yes.
each other.
Oh my God.
And
it's
have
amazing.
just been moved so you can see the most of what's going on.
Mhm.
Like there's that much going on. So for me to zero in on one piece of art, I think I've got to come to the title page.
Yeah.
That's like a single splash,
Mhm.
which is a splash page, ironic because Zariel is landing in San Francisco Bay, which I'm sure caused a big splash. But he's
Yeah.
like upside down and
Mhm.
just kind of like spread almost kind of crucifix style. The wings are still really
Mhm.
big. It's our first really good look at him, and he's a very cool
Yeah.
design.
Mhm.
Later, a little spoiler, later on when he comes back, his like superhero outfit is this kind of armor stuff, and it looks cool, but
Mhm.
honestly, he's so damn cool. Like just like in his like
When he's not sexually
scarf
harassing the only woman on the team, then
I
yeah.
said he looked cool. So for me, it's that title page. It just really and if you are, culturally prepared to go, oh shit, that's an angel,
Mhm.
we've already on that title page answered Lonnie's question of how does it get bigger than White Martians? Right there.
It is absolutely right there. All right, so what's your favorite part of the story, the storytelling?
My favorite part of the story is actually kind of tied to your favorite art in a way,
Yeah.
because my favorite part of the story is when Jean just has had enough.
Yeah.
Just enough.
Mhm.
We already did the speech. I love the speech. Gives me chills. And the part that I really, that kind of makes me laugh is he's really mad.
Yeah.
And Martian vision is big time shit. Like he gives him a full face of it. And he's so proper about it. We will not do as we're instructed. Now, I know that this is directly in response to the angel saying, do as you're instructed. But it's
Right.
also just like, I've ripped your face off and now I'm going to have some tea. It's just got a little vibe to it like that. What about yourself, Lonnie? Your favorite part of this, like 10 gallons of story in an 8-gallon bucket?
I mean, seriously, yeah. As I was doing this, I had so little idea of what was going on. Like, I felt like I understood the basic movements of it, but like what it all meant, what it all was, everything. I have to say, like, I think it's when Superman is holding the world on his shoulders,
Yeah.
and talking about his feelings with Flash, struggling with his own mythology, like what he
Yes,
is, what
yeah.
he means to the people that he tries to protect, And all of that I felt like was just such a wonderful human moment. And it's funny because as we talk about, Aquaman talking about Katar and like having that human moment, like, John
Mhm.
having that human moment of fuck all y'all, I'm done with this shit. Like
Mhm.
all of that stuff. Like I think it's always those human moments that are going to be the big things that like draw me in. And just like the weight of the world, holding the world up like Atlas, and Superman is like, I don't know how to think about all this stuff. How does Batman do it? All this kind of stuff. I love all of that.
I've said this before when we were dealing with White Martians, but it's those moments
Mhm.
that give some kind of sense of scale.
Yeah.
Right? Like all of this is so big, and I wouldn't want it a micron smaller,
Mhm.
right? But as we've discussed with like a lot of the fights at the end of MCU movies where they're just kind of cartoons beating on each other, there's no sense of
Mhm.
scale to it.
Yeah.
We've lost that thread of humanity, and that we're able to like inject it,
Mhm.
in a panel with Aquaman, in a whole page with Superman and Flash. Yeah, it's great. It's
It
really
is.
impressive.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's the salt, right?
Mhm.
Like this thing would taste good anyway. Here's some salt, and it just brings it out by bringing it, a little closer to Earth.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week with JLA number 7, heaven on earth, in which the earth gets even closer to a disaster of biblical proportions. Until then, I think the apocalypse has arrived.
Thanks for listening to In the Gutter with Joshua Unruh and Lonnie Diane Rich. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider talking about it with your friends, leaving a review somewhere, or supporting Chipperish Media, patreon.com/Chipperish.